All right, hello for you that are in the room right now. We are just about to get started, so feel free to get comfortable. We'll be starting in a couple minutes, and yeah, find yourself a comfy spot, a glass of tea, water, wine, whatever that might be, and we'll get started here in a few minutes.
Hi, everyone. Say hi while people are signing in, so you're not wondering if I'm silent.
Thank you so much, everyone. Just getting settled here. We are going to get started in about 1 minute, so feel free to get comfortable. You'll see that we've got the chat box open. I see a lot of familiar names from the first few weeks that we've been doing this, so great to see you again and welcome back. And we'll get started here in a little bit.
Perfect. I'll say hello again for everybody that's joining us, especially those familiar faces. The end of a fabulous series. Thankful for Nature's Fair for doing this, guys. This has been so fun. I hope you guys have all had a great time during this last 4 weeks. Are you back?
I'm here. Let's do this. It's 6:30.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful evening. We're so grateful to have you here with us for a little bit of time this evening, Chelan. We're going to be wrapping up this 4-week series that we've been doing on hormone health. And tonight, as you can see on the slide, it's all about redefining women's health and navigating through hormones with some confidence and empowered. And so before we get started, I'll let you know my name is Haley and I work with the corporate events team at Nature's Fair Markets. And we're really excited to have our partner Harmony and Chelan with us tonight. The presentation will be about an hour. Your microphones will be off for the attendees, but the Q&A box is open in the chat. So feel free to send us your questions, comment. I'm sure Chelan's going to be asking you questions, so feel free to participate and get involved. A recording of the presentation will be sent out via email. And one lucky attendee that's with us for the event tonight will win a door prize of a fantastic giveaway from Harmony. So before I hand it over to Chelan, I'll just give you a little bit of info on her background. She is a registered holistic nutritionist and passionate about working as both a practitioner and an educator with a focus on women's health. Through her own podcast series, A Hot Mess, she empowers women to take charge of their hormones and their health. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, Chelan.
Thanks for having me.
We're very much looking forward to all of your expertise.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that amazing introduction. So, hi, everybody. Hi again. So yes, let's get started in redefining women's health. So as Haley was mentioning, I'm super passionate about it. If you guys have been joining me for the last 3 weeks, we've talked a lot of good stuff. If you're just joining us for the first time tonight and didn't get a chance to get, visit the Facebook Lives, I believe they're still actually on the Facebook page, so you can go back and check. But what we've been talking about is, what we've been talking about is just women's health, and, what things associated with that. So our hormones and stress and skin health. So before we dive into it, I know we've already, Haley introduced you, but yes, I'm Vancouver based. Vernon's actually my hometown. I am a mom of 2 daughters, and yes, I recently will be starting a podcast called A Hot Mess, and you can ask me questions about that later. So tonight, girls, it's all about girl talk. So obviously, because we're talking about redefining women's health, we are going to talk about the evolution of womanhood. So what I mean by that is that if you've been attending my Facebook Lives, I talk about how we don't stay stagnant throughout our lives with our hormones. We have ebbs and flows throughout our hormones, from the moment that we get our cycles when we are adolescents until we go into menopause and transition out of our reproductive years into the next journey in our lives. So we evolve as women. So we're going to talk about the key players in our body, because these are essential to understanding. These are essential for us for our overall health and overall hormone health, and it's really important for us to understand what they do in our body. We're going to talk about our cycles. We're going to talk about our hormones. I'm going to talk a little bit about lifestyle for women and what is important for us when we talk about our health. We're going to talk about nutrition, and then I'm going to tell you what my favorite supplements are that I personally use, and that I think that women today, if you were to ask me to write you a list of the things that would be your game changers in your health, or what are proactive for our health, or things that we need, these are the ones that I recommend to my clients. So first off, ladies, I want you all to know that your body is amazing. Okay, so we as women have the ability to create life. We have so many cool features about our body. Our body is a finely tuned machine, and when things are out of balance or when things are not working well, our body tells us what's going on, right? So the main things that when I talk about the key players in our body, you can see on the screen here, our liver, our digestive health, and our overall health. This is what, as a woman, I think we really need to focus on, and what plays over, looking at our overall picture of our health, redefining our health. This is what we need to, make sure are all in check. So number one, liver health. So if you've been attending my Facebooks, you'll hear me say how important it is to have a good, healthy liver. The reason for this is that our liver is our main detoxifying organ. So we take on so many toxins and bacterias every single day. We hear about going on detoxes or juice cleanses to feel better, but our liver's job is to be that detox, that cleanse. Its job is to do that every single day. So we need to make sure that we're looking after our liver. Its main job is detoxification. It's also responsible for the metabolism of our excess hormones in our body. So if we have too much estrogen in our body, our liver will detoxify it. So it also metabolizes the bad estrogens that we can get in our body. It's important for nutrient absorption within our body. It's important for our blood sugar balance, and as well as our immune function. So we need to make sure that we have a good, healthy liver. And I'll talk about what I recommend for you guys to, make sure you have a healthy liver. People who have been joining for the last 3 weeks are already raising their hand. They know what you should be taking. So we want to have a good, healthy liver. Our digestive health is also equally as important. So women don't really like to talk about this area in their health, but our digestive tract is very, very important for numerous reasons, okay? So our digestive tract, other than absorbing the nutrients that we get from our foods, metabolizing those foods, so our carbs and our fats and our proteins, so we eat these foods, we digest them, and then we get the nutrients, and then, we have different enzymes that break these down. It also is responsible for our hormone production. So we need to have a good, healthy digestive tract. We need to make sure that we have a functioning digestive tract, because we need to make sure that we are getting rid of those excess hormones. So if we have an abundance of hormones, let's say estrogen, because estrogen dominance is pretty prevalent. If we don't have a good, healthy digestive tract, we're not excreting that out, because we get rid of that excess estrogen through our poop, as well as we excrete it through our kidneys. So as much as we don't want to talk about our washroom habits, or, kind of look into it, we need to make sure that we're going to the washroom at least once a day, or 2 to 3 times a day would be ideal. If we have a slow going digestive tract, we have constipation, and lots of people that I've worked with have been like, oh, I only go to the bathroom every few days. That's how I've always been. It's normal. That is not normal. You need to make sure you're going every day. What our digestive tract does is it absorbs the nutrients, it breaks all the food down, and then all of those toxins and bacteria that are not good for us, we excrete it out. So if we're holding on to all those bacteria and those toxins because our body has got a sluggish digestive tract, then we're going to have some inflammation. We're going to have some, we could have some allergy responses. We can have, different things. We could have skin eruptions. We could have acne. We could have skin conditions. We could have bacterial overgrowth. We can have a bunch of things going on in our body because we just aren't getting that stuff out, right? Everything works together in our body. So our digestive health is really important. 80% of our immune system resides in our digestive tract. So right now, we've all been really worried about taking care of our immunity and making sure that we're healthy and strong. So if we don't have a good, healthy digestive tract, we're not going to have a good functioning immune system because 80% of our immune system resides in our digestive tract, as well as we have serotonin that's created in our digestive tract. So serotonin is that hormone that makes us feel happy and healthy, and it increases our good moods. So if you're feeling like you're in a slump, or you're always in a bad mood, or you maybe suffer from a little bit of depression, if you don't create enough of that serotonin, especially when people kind of, as they are diagnosed with depression, you're actually put on antidepressants that increase serotonin in your body. So you want to make sure you're having a good, healthy digestive tract, because we need to naturally increase our own serotonin levels, increase our immunity, as well as we need to make sure we have healthy hormone levels for women. And this isn't uncommon. So most people have digestive disorders, whether they have IBS or IBD, Crohn's, colitis, constipation. So it's not uncommon for us to have, a pretty compromised digestive tract. I really believe that everybody should be taking a probiotic, because a probiotic puts in that good, healthy bacteria to fight off all of the bacteria that we get. So think about when we get put on an antibiotic to fight off a bacterial infection in our body. So an antibiotic goes in, it kills off all of those bacteria. But what it also does is it kills off all of our good bacteria in our digestive tract. So we need to make sure that we're getting enough of those good, healthy bacteria to fight off those bacteria in our digestive tract and in our body. So think of it this way. If you were to look in your digestive tract and you had good bacteria, and then you had the bad bacteria that was residing in it, it's kind of like a war. So the good bacteria is constantly fighting it off. So you want to make sure you have an abundance of that to fight off those bad bacteria all the time. And it helps with our sickness, our immune levels, as well as our healthy hormone levels. So a probiotic is very beneficial when we're talking about, having healthy hormones and a good digestive tract. So our overall health for women. So we all know the basics you see here on the screen. We want to make sure that we do regular breast exams. So once we hit 40, we end up getting told by our doctors that we need to make sure that we have regular mammograms. Breast health is very, very important. Especially, I believe that we should be doing breast exams as soon as we develop breasts. We want to make sure that we don't have any cysts. We want to make sure that we don't have any lumps. There's different kinds of cancers out there that can be related to estrogens or high amounts of estrogens. Imbalances can cause kind of, breast tenderness and differentiates. So you want to make sure that you're constantly doing breast health and breast exams. It's very important for women, not something that we want to skip out on. Same thing with cervical cancer screening. So very important for us to be on top of our pap smears and being aware of those kind of things. Notice what's going on in your body. Like I talked about earlier, our body is meant to send us signs and signals that things are out of balance. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to those. And hopefully over the last few weeks, I've kind of given you guys some ideas of what imbalances look like. So many of you guys may have been living with these signs and symptoms for a long time, thinking that this is your normal. However, these can be signs of imbalances, and now you're being a little bit more aware of it, and you're like, okay, wait, yeah, this isn't right. Now I want to be proactive and taking care of this. So making sure that we're in tune with our body. Our heart health, our mental health, and our bone health are also very important when it comes to women. I'll go a little bit more further into detail why later, but these are when it comes to looking at our women's health, it's not just about our hormones, but it's the overall picture. And this is what is important, what I believe is important for women today to be proactive in, rather than being reactive. And, how from as soon as, I want to say in our early 20s and moving forward, that we need to be conscious of. So let's dive into that. So health begins at every age, ladies, depending on your ages. I think this is a valuable slide in this presentation because, like I said, we're always evolving as women. So who we were when we were 20 is not who we are when we're in our 30s or our 40s or our 50s or our 60s. Our body is constantly changing. We're constantly evolving. So it's a natural aging process. So in our 20s, we start to understand our bodies more so in the sense that we've kind of had a few years of having our cycles and, things kind of start to even out a little bit. We've gotten used to having our periods. We might start to notice we have an increase in our libido. So we're kind of stepping more into those reproductive years because our hormones start to change and kind of get us into that maternal mode. We have more energy. And this is often the sign where we start to see more imbalances because we've gone into our cycles, and then as we kind of get into our older years, things should kind of regulate a little bit, but then we see more of like PCOS or endometriosis. We see cystic acne happening or more PMS driven signs and symptoms in our body. So this is generally where we'll see some of those imbalances. In our 30s, then we start to see the subtle stages of aging. So this is our childbearing years. During this childbearing years, we start to notice those surges in that estrogen and those progesterone. We also see increase in our stressors. So we might have our careers, might be finishing university. We see these stressors within our family. We also might start to notice body composition changes. So we might start to put on weight a little bit differently. We might start noticing we have wider, like we get hippie, we get that hourglass figure. Even our breast, our breast development might change during this time as well. So we kind of start to notice things shift. Then our 40s, we get into more of, we start to notice our hormones shifting into perimenopause. Our moods, our metabolism will start to change. So we might gain weight easier, more prone to stress. And then we kind of look at family history. So we might start to notice metabolic disorders, diabetes, those kind of things, and being more aware of those genetics of those certain cancers that can be through our genetics, and then things like heart disease. So you can see that our health over the years kind of fluctuates and changes. A lot of this still stems down to, our hormones and why they play such an important role. But there are different things that we go through as women that we need to pay attention to. So stress and sleep is very important when we're looking at women's health, of everybody's health. I don't want to just say it's just women's health, but women especially need to look at our stress levels. So joining me tonight, or if you've been joining over the last few weeks, you've known how much I've talked about stress levels and cortisol. So cortisol plays a huge role in our other hormones. So if we have a lot of stress in our life, we are going to be prone to hormonal imbalances, thyroid conditions. This can even affect our cardiovascular health. So put us more at risk for heart disease and heart attacks. So we really want to be mindful of how much stress we have and reduce that cortisol. It also can increase our anxiety and depression in our body. So if you're noticing that you have a lot of anxiety, you might be living a very stressful life. It could be through career, it could be family. We might be going through a global pandemic right now, so we might be seeing a lot more of that coming up. But we really want to be mindful of that, of how much stress, because this can make these things more severe. Sleep disturbances is also very common. So how many of you guys on here this right now have had a hard time sleeping these last 14 weeks? Maybe having nightmares, maybe having insomnia, you're not sleeping for the night. This all can be because cortisol and melatonin, which is our sleep hormone, they sit on a teeter-totter. So if we have a lot of cortisol in our body, we're going to have less melatonin. And as we get older, their melatonin or cortisol can fluctuate, but other sex hormones like our estrogen and progesterone dropping can also decrease our melatonin and also cause sleep disturbances. So we want to make sure that we are mindful of that and that we're, looking after ourselves and getting enough sleep. Weight gain and loss of libido are very common when it comes to stress, these can also be very detrimental to our confidence and how we feel as a woman. So when we start to put on weight, that can add to more of the depression. That definitely can cause a loss in our libido. So we're not really feeling confident in our bodies. We're not really feeling, confident. That can cause more stress, which will affect our sex hormones. So a loss of libido and weight gain definitely go together. And this is very prevalent when we're talking about high stress. This can also be common with men, ladies. Men hold stress differently in their bodies. And usually a big sign when men are under a lot of stress is a loss of libido because they have a drop in their testosterone. So loss of libido is very common when we're talking about high amounts of stress. Do you sleep enough? So ask yourself this. Do you get between 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night? And I'm talking solid sleep. Do you go to bed at the same time? So very important to have a sleep routine. So if you're a person that stays up on your screen till 2 o'clock in the morning, reading articles or, just scrolling through stuff, or you watch TV late at night and then you fall asleep and you sleep in late, but you don't have a consistent sleep cycle, this is actually going to affect our melatonin levels, which therefore will affect our cortisol levels, right? So you want to make sure that you're getting at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night and having a good, consistent sleep routine. So I always recommend, if you are parents out there and you've ever done sleep scheduling with your children, you have a routine, right? So hot bath, read a book, go to bed. It works well. I do this all the time. So I usually start to tie my night down. I'll have a bath. I try to read a book. I try to stay off my tablets at night or my phone. So the blue light on our screens and our phone actually can affect the production of melatonin through our pineal gland. So that can decrease that melatonin production. So if you ever notice that when you can't sleep, the first thing you do is you pick up your phone, you're looking, you can stay on that thing for hours. You're not feeling sleepy. Where if you pick up a book, you decide to read a few chapters and then you start nodding off because you get tired, right? It's that blue light in our phones that affects our melatonin production. So try to create a nice, healthy routine. Sleep is important at any age. We seem to not need as much of it when we're in our 20s, but we sure do notice as we get older how much sleep we just need to feel good, to have that energy. It helps with our blood sugar balance. We're not craving bad foods. We're not relying on lots of coffee. And it helps with, our skin health. We don't look like we've aged a lot. And just overall, right? So we need to make sure we get enough sleep. And do you breathe? So this might sound funny, but when I say do you breathe, do you know how to take a deep breath when you're feeling a lot of stress? So if you've ever attended one of my seminars, I've done deep breathing exercises. So I won't do it right now, but I want you guys to practice this after this webinar to see how you feel. I encourage you to do this. So all you need is 1 minute out of your day to do this. So I want you to sit in your chair. If you want, you can do it now, but I'm not going to do the whole exercise. But I want you to sit in your chair, put your feet plant on the ground, and then close your eyes. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take a nice 4-second inhale in through your nose, and you're going to hold it, and then you're going to let it out for 4 seconds. And you're going to continue this pattern. So you're going to just breathe in and you're going to breathe out. And during these breathing exercises, I want you to notice how your body starts to change. So when you're having a really stressful day and, the kids are driving you crazy, or your husband, or, you're just you're very, very frantic, try this breathing exercise. And basically what ends up happening is you're tapping into something called your parasympathetic nervous system. And this is your rest and digest. So this is telling your body to calm down and rest. And you start to notice that everything starts to kind of shift, and it lowers your cortisol. So those nights that you are having a hard time sleeping and you're tossing and turning and you're looking at the clock and you're thinking, oh gosh, I have to be up in 2 hours and 47 minutes. You feel the adrenaline pumping in your heart. Try to do the breathing exercise. Try to just breathe in and breathe out, and you start to notice. So it's a really great way to reduce that stress and to reduce that cortisol, and also really helpful if you're needing sleep. And I'm sure there's a lot of women who are on here right now that can recognize how many times we have felt like this. Like my favorite episode is Sex and the City, where Charlotte locks herself in the pantry because her kids are driving her. I've been there. But the breathing really helps. And it really helps with anxiety and, just feeling very overwhelmed. So I always tell people, make sure that you breathe. Next, we're going to talk about cycles. So our cycles tell us so much about what's going on in our body. So do we have an intimate relationship with our cycles? So this is something that I hope you guys all take away from this, is I really want you girls out there who are listening and watching to understand how much our cycles can tell us, and how important they are. So if you've already gone through perimenopause or menopause, you no longer have your cycles, that's okay. But if you're into perimenopause, tracking your cycles is really important, because you can kind of start to notice the inconsistencies. You might notice that, the signs and symptoms that are associated with it. So if you're having more PMS, but if we can understand our cycles, it can show different imbalances in our body. And so, like I said, many of us women have gone on having the same kind of signs and symptoms for many, many years that we thought was just normal. We thought having really painful period cramps was just normal. Being stuck at home with very, very heavy periods was just normal. Having a period 1 month and having it not the next month was normal, because that's just how we always been. But we know now, especially if you've been attending this series, that shows that there's hormonal imbalances and inconsistencies, and we are not meant to live or to suffer through our periods and our cycles and our perimenopause. That's not how our body is supposed to be. Sure, we might have a little bit of cramping, but that's because our uterus is a muscle, but we shouldn't be in a lot of pain. We shouldn't be experiencing a lot of these hormonal imbalances that we are. So there are ways that we can kind of, fix that or help, regulate and balance that. So our cycles tells us a lot about that. So how you can track your cycles is, there's a great, we mentioned it actually Haley did yesterday, the Flow app. So it's really, really great way to track your periods, or you can do it on, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but on your calendar, but get to know how often it comes, how long your bleeds are, if you're still having your periods, are they really heavy? Are they really light? Do you have spotting? Start to get to know those things, because those things can tell you a lot about what's going on in your body, right? What is normal? What's normal for me is not going to be normal for you, because we're all uniquely different, right? But making sure you're having a consistent cycle, so anywhere between 28 to 32 days, or a bleed between 4 to 7 and it's consistent every month, that is what is normal. If you notice inconsistency through that, and you're not in your perimenopausal years, that might show that you have a hormonal imbalance between that estrogen and progesterone. If you're in perimenopause, that might be showing that, yes, you're starting to go through this transition and your change in your life. Just so you guys know, perimenopause can happen 8 to 10 years before we hit menopause. So that doesn't mean that you have all these signs and symptoms for 8 to 10 years, and I'm talking about extreme things like hot flashes and night sweat, but we might start to notice that period irregularities or cycle changes, or maybe some hormonal acne or some bit of weight gain or breast tenderness. These things might start to happen 8 to 10 years before we actually hit menopause, which is the absence of our period for 12 whole months. So get to know your cycles. And I recommend this for girls of all ages. Okay. So if you're a mom of a teenage daughter or is going through this, or, if you yourself are in your 20s and your 30s, really start to pay attention to your cycles and say, hey, I've been noticing that I've been feeling really moody around this time, or I have food cravings, or, I have a lot of weight gain, or, I have a heavy flow and it's really uncomfortable. Get to know these things, because there are ways that you can help naturally balance and regulate through food, supplementation, and lifestyle changes without having to go on birth control pills or take hormone replacement therapies, or just live in, misery of feeling all of these things and thinking that this is how it's supposed to be. So that slides us into our hormones. So hopefully all of you ladies who've been with me for the last 4 weeks have a better understanding of what our hormones are, especially our lady hormones. Do we understand them? So I remember when I first went to holistic nutrition school, I knew what estrogen was. I really didn't know too much about progesterone. I only thought men had testosterone. And so when I went through the whole series of this, I thought, how can I'm a female, so I have testosterone, and guys have estrogen. So I always loved to bug my husband about that. But understanding what our hormones do in our body is really important, and understanding how they work, and, basically, how they evolve as we get older. Okay, so understanding our hormones. Could we have an imbalance? So some of those imbalance that we see is high amounts of estrogen, so estrogen dominance. That's when we have an abundance of estrogen in our body and we start to have heavier periods. We have, we could have longer cycles. We could have a lot more cramping. We might have more weight gain, more cellulite. We could have the puffy face. We will start to know that we have a drop in our progesterone, so we might have more irritability, some more anxiety. If we have low progesterone, again, those kind of things, we might have a hard time getting pregnant, so infertility. We might have a surge in that testosterone or those androgens, so PCOS, endometriosis, fibrocystic breast disease. These are all can be from imbalances of that estrogen, progesterone, DHEA, testosterone, and cortisol. So birth control pills generally, when we go to the doctor, because we start to notice that we have these signs, doctors generally will be like, I'll put you on birth control pill because it's a synthetic hormone. Basically, birth control pills shut off the conversation from our brain into our ovaries. So they don't really help balance out those hormones. So if you are going to go on a birth control pill to help with your hormonal imbalances or things that are going on in your body, you're not actually helping regulate them. You're actually kind of just shutting off that communication. Birth control pills, if you're going on to, for birth control methods, that's one thing. But if you're taking it because you have some imbalances, then I would encourage you to kind of look at the other things that we're going to talk about tonight for women's health. A lot of times when people go on birth control pills, they have a hard time, getting pregnant afterwards, only for the sense that their hormones are imbalanced. And you need to do, some work to help regulate those hormones after we come off the birth control pill. So there are some conflicting things when we're talking about birth control pills and hormonal imbalances. However, I'm not a medical doctor, but, we do know that they don't actually help naturally balance out those hormones. We see infertility issues a lot with hormonal imbalances. Usually infertility is the first sign that we have something going on with our hormones. So we may be like, my periods have always been the same, or, we've been living with the same cycles without really noticing that there's anything off. It's not until we go into, trying to have a baby and then we have our hormone levels checked and then we see some inconsistencies with those hormone levels. So infertility is generally the first sign that we notice that things are off with our hormones. And then going into perimenopause. So perimenopause, again, those hormonal balances, we don't really pay attention until we get to that time because we start to having more severe of these symptoms. So as if, if we have PMS here and there, but once we go into perimenopause, these can be that much more. So getting into like that anxiety, moodiness, irregular cycles. We see more hot flashes, hot sweats, and, just feeling a little bit more miserable than usual. The end of our reproductive years is where we stop producing enough of that estrogen. So basically our ovaries produce the estrogen in our body. And menopause, our ovaries stop producing that estrogen and our adrenal glands will kick in and start producing that for us. So that is the end of our reproductive year. So we stop ovulating and then we stop producing enough of that, producing that estrogen in our ovaries. So that's where we see that change sliding into menopause, which is totally normal. And definitely, a lot of women kind of fear that going into, and there is a lot of grief that's associated with this. And I want to say that's totally normal, but it's just transitioning to the next stage of our life going into this. And it is, we're transitioning into this life. This is the next stage for us. Like, right. When we're a teenager and you get your periods, we sort of say you've become a woman, right? So we get outside. Well, I didn't get excited when I first got my periods, but, you go into womanhood and then you go through these reproductive years. And then once we hit menopause, and you stop having your periods and you end your reproductive, I don't want women to feel like that's it. I want women to be like, okay, so I've done this stage in my life. We're going to move forward and I'm going to embrace the next stage of my life, because life's not over once, we hit menopause. We just have to get through that time of our lives, like through perimenopause, all of those signs and symptoms to get to that stage. So menopause should be a celebration of moving forward, not being, oh, this is over. So why do our hormones matter, ladies? And hopefully lots of you guys that have attended the last 3 weeks are like raising your hand or typing away and be like, I know why. We have 3 different types of estrogen in our body. The main ones that we hear about is estradiol. So again, estrogen is produced in our ovaries, as well as our adrenal glands. It's the development of our reproductive organs. So it's actually responsible for the production of, for our breast development. It also is responsible for the growth of our mammary duct, like our milk ducts in our breasts. So it's responsible for that reproduction. So it's heaviest. We have higher amounts of estrogen in the first 2 weeks of our cycles. It's also important for the flexibility of our blood vessels and our arteries. So we'll talk a little bit more about why this is important when we get older. But estrogen is not just a hormone that we talk about with our periods. It does other things in our body. Progesterone is our chill hormone, so it helps us stay calm and relaxed. So we see a lot of that imbalance near our periods when we have lower progesterone. Progesterone actually helps, when we have, first 2 weeks of our period, estrogen makes that nice endometrium nice and thick and juicy. So when we, release that egg and it gets fertilized and we get implantation, progesterone helps with that. It's also highest when our first trimester our pregnancy, but if we don't get pregnant, then it drops and then we shed that lining. So it's also produced in our adrenal glands. So progesterone and estrogen work on a teeter-totter between the two of them. And then cortisol, you guys have heard me speak about this quite a bit. It's our stress hormone. It's our fight or flight response. So I don't want you guys to feel that cortisol is a negative hormone in our body. We actually need it. So say we're getting chased by a bear, that cortisol is going to come pumping out. It's going to release adrenaline and we're going to run as fast as we can, right? But if we're under constant stress and we're not getting chased by the bear and, we keep pumping out this cortisol, our body's not going to produce enough and then it's going to cause imbalances between our sex hormones and our thyroid, and then we can get into adrenal dysfunction. So we don't want to continuously pump out all that cortisol. We want to make sure that we reduce that stress level because it is there for a purpose, but we also don't want to make sure that we got too much. It also triggers our blood sugar imbalance. So basically, as we get older, we have a slower metabolism. That's just naturally what ends up happening. We want to make sure that we have a stable blood sugar balance that helps with our moods. It helps with our body composition. It also helps with our metabolic. So we want to have good insulin, good insulin levels. So if we have imbalanced blood sugar, that can increase that can affect our insulin sensitivity. So we really want to make sure that we, reduce our stress levels. How many of you guys in the last 14 weeks have noticed you have sugar cravings, or you're craving lots more carbs, or you're constantly going up and down with the carbohydrates because you eat a nice treat like a baked sweet, and then 20 minutes later you're like, oh, I want more. You're craving more and more of it. That's a unstable blood sugar balance. Or most of you guys know what the term hangry means, and that's when our blood sugar levels drop and we haven't eaten for a long time, and then we get a little bit moody. So we want to make sure we have that nice stable blood sugar. So on here, 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer through their lifetime. So that's 75 women a day. 1 in 33 women will die of breast cancer. So the reason I have this on the slide, because remember how I talked about our over health and redefining our health? I don't want women just to think health is just something that happens when a health issue comes up. We want to be proactive in our health as a woman from the moment that we, I want to push for, girls in their late teens to be proactive about their health and looking after the foods that they eat and knowing their cycles and really paying attention. The reality of that, I'm not really sure, but once we get into our 20s and our 30s, being really proactive in our health really does have long-term benefits, right? So when I'm talking about breast cancer, there is a huge increase in our estradiol. After we hit, if we have too much estrogen in our body, we can be at risk for, estrogen-related breast cancers. So there can be genetic genes and those things that all play a role, but I really like to mention how important it is for us with our reproductive organs. So we really want to be mindful of that breast health. We want to be mindful of our cervical health, as well as our uterine health and ovarian health, right? We have very critical body parts that are all sensitive to hormones. So we want to be smart and proactive and just really pay attention to our body if we notice anything that seems abnormal. Don't be afraid to ask the question, ladies. Don't be afraid to be in touch with your body and be, like a boss babe in your health, to go into your doctor or your naturopath and be like, hey, something doesn't feel right, or something, you want to ask questions. This is your body. You own this. This is like your house for the rest of your entire life. So you want to make sure that you're looking after it. So yes, once we get into menopause, past menopause, women are more susceptible to having higher amounts of estrogen in their body from outside sources of estrogen. And remember how I talked about if we had a sluggish digestive tract or we had sluggish liver health and we get that abundance of that estrogen in our body because we're just not getting enough out, even though once our ovaries stop producing estrogen, we still can have a high amount of estrogen from outside sources in our body that can leave us at a risk for estrogen related cancers such as breast, ovarian, and uterine cancer. So menopause, like I said, ladies, this is the next stage into our life. This isn't the end of, our lives. This is the next stage where we embrace it and we go forward with confidence and empowerment. So what does this mean for you? This means it's the end of, your reproductive years, right? You no longer have your periods. You might occasionally have 1 or 2 or 3, symptoms of perimenopause. So more commonly, we see a lot more of that hot flashes or some night sweats. A lot of that hormonal imbalances kind of simmer down. You don't have a lot of that irritability. Some women won't have signs and symptoms for a few years. And then if they have too much stress, like right now, or something's kind of come up, they might start to notice like, hey, I'm having a bit of a hot flash, or, oh yeah. It even can be down to like the foods, or if we start to have, if you've had a few glasses of wine, our body could be a little bit reactive to that. Lifestyle changes as we go through menopause. I think it's really important that we keep up with our physical health. So just because we age doesn't mean we need to stop exercising or looking after ourselves. Our muscular system is very important for housing or for protecting our skeletal system. And as we get older, we start to lose that nice muscle mass that we need. So that lean muscle mass. So muscle obviously changes the structure of our body, but it's important for making us be strong, right? We want to stay strong. It prevents us from having injuries and having, if we fall and have, breaking our hip or things like that, that leads to hip injuries later on in life. So we want to make sure that we have a nice, strong physical body. So we want to keep up with things. It doesn't have to be you going to the gym and working out. If you like to do that, that's great. But just anything that's body weight exercises or, using bands or doing yoga or Pilates or anything that you can do at least 2 to 3 times a week. You still need to make sure that you're looking after your nutrition. So we talked about how important that is, eating good, wholesome foods. You want to get in enough protein, essential fatty acids, those kind of things to make sure that you're staying healthy. You have to make sure that you're looking after your heart health. Cardiovascular health is very important as we get older. Heart disease is very prevalent in women. Collagen is essential. So how many of you guys out here have heard of collagen for beauty purposes, right? So as we get older, we naturally start to age. It's a given. But collagen has so many more other benefits in our body as well of just looking after our hair, skin, and nails. So we naturally create our own collagen in our body. And our collagen production naturally decreases as we get older. So let's say in our 20s, our collagen production probably could go down about, let's say 10 to 15%. In our 30s, it could be down by about up to 25%. Diet and lifestyle factors all play a role in this. Stress also plays a role in our collagen production. And then once we hit about 45, our collagen production can actually decrease by about 50%. So it's not fair. We're going through menopause and then all of a sudden our collagen production starts to plummet. What we see with signs of decrease in collagen production, we start to notice more fine lines. We start to notice our skin like it used to be up here, but then it starts to drop. We might start to notice we get these nasolabial folds. This is all naturally part of being the aging process, but our skin is not nice and plump and dewy, right? Might notice a little bit more cellulite. What happens on the internal side of our body is that our cartilage starts to break down in our joints. So as our cartilage breaks down from the loss of collagen or the decrease in collagen production in our body, we can be more prone to things like osteoarthritis. Arthritis is the breakdown of cartilage in our bodies, and then we have that bone on bone. So we want to make sure that we are taking enough vitamin C, which is essential for collagen production, but taking a collagen product daily to help keep up that cartilage and the health of our ligaments and our joints as we get older, because this is generally the things that we start to know. We have achy joints and pains, we have hip injuries, we start to notice it in our hands. So we really want to make sure that we're getting enough collagen. It also helps with our blood vessels. So our blood vessels and our arteries is also made up of collagen. So we want to make sure that we increase that nice flexibility in our arteries, so we have good, healthy blood vessels that help reduce helps reduce our risk of having a heart attack or even strokes. So collagen is really, really important. It's also a very easy way to get enough protein in your diet. So if you are not noticing that you're getting enough protein is essential for lean muscle mass. So collagen is an excellent and clean source of protein. It also helps heal our digestive tract. There's many benefits to collagen, and it's really important for women, I believe, to be proactive not only in their skin health and their beauty regime, but also for their long-term joint health as they age, to be taking a collagen product at least in their mid-20s to keep up their collagen production. And I know it's very overwhelming. There's so many collagen products on the market. Happy to answer questions about collagen after this if you have them, but I definitely believe women should be taking a collagen product. Pelvic floor health. So our pelvic floor, ladies, is responsible for, holding our core muscles together. So our pelvic floor and our core muscles. As we get older, what ends up happening is these muscles just naturally start to loosen. They start to lax. We start to notice that we have instability in our hips. We might have back pain. We'll have hip pain. We won't have a lot of sturdiness, let's say unilateral sturdiness. So we're kind of a little bit wobbly. We might start to notice that we have, leakage, so urinary incontinence. We might start to notice that we have prolapses with our uterus and our bladder. This is all from our pelvic floor strength. So this is preventable. And when I'm talking about menopause, I believe that women should be doing this. And we just had a great speaker the other night on who talked about this. Why we should be proactive in our core health and our pelvic floor health, even back in our 20s and our 30s. So this doesn't necessarily need to start in our menopausal years, but as a woman, if we're going to talk about working out and taking care of our body, our pelvic floor is just as important. It's really important to hold in, to do the exercises now to prevent, things happening like incontinence and things like that later on, because that all can play a role in our libido and our overall, how we feel about ourselves, right? We feel a lot of insecurities and we don't really feel, empowered in our bodies when we are having, leakage, or we're having painful intercourse, or we don't, we have vaginal dryness. Like, these are all things that kind of make us like, yeah. And sexual health is very important at any stage in our lives, right? Just because we're a certain age and going through something, hormonal changes, does not mean that our sex life needs to be over, our sexual health, right? It's just that changing, of those hormones, and there's different things that we can work on. So very, very important. Just so you know, and I'll touch lightly on this, but just so you know that oxytocin is our feel-good hormone. So if you've had a baby, then you know that oxytocin is released when you're breastfeeding, and right, you get that uterine contraction. Oxytocin is something that they give you when you're going into labor and they're trying to increase those contractions. It's also that hormone that's released when you hug somebody and you have that feel-good hormone and you just feel warm and fuzzy all over our body, right? That is an important hormone that we need to have if we are with partners, or, as we go through this change, our stage in our life. If we don't have that feeling of connection and we don't feel that hormone, that can definitely affect our moods and stuff long-term, and our other hormones. So really important to, look at that whole picture when we're talking about different stages in our life, and sexual health is very important. So it helps with our confidence and empowerment. So I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't talk about nutrition, as I'm a nutritionist. So ladies, are we eating a diet rich in fiber? So fiber is really good for making us feel full longer. It's also really good for our digestive tract. So getting rid of all of those toxins and bacteria. A lot of the times when we are constipated, it's from the reason A, we're not drinking enough water, and B, we're not eating enough fiber-rich foods. We need to make sure we're eating a clean source of protein at every meal. Are we getting 5 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables a day? So Berries are a really great way. They're filled with antioxidants. We want to get enough antioxidants, in our diet, our daily diet every day, because antioxidants fight off those free radicals. They're really good for our cardiovascular health. They're really good for our skin health. We want to make sure we're getting enough. Do we consume a healthy amount of healthy fats? So our bodies need fat to produce hormones. Doesn't matter if we are in our 20s, our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, our 60s. We need to make sure that we're getting enough of those healthy fats. Healthy fats are like our avocados, our almonds, our nuts, our nut butters, our olive oils, our avocado oils. We want to make sure that we get that in every serving. Do we have stable blood sugar? So we touched on this a little bit, but you want to have that stable blood sugar because we don't want to have those spikes in our insulin and then the plummets. That it leads to insulin sensitivity. It leads to hangry, bad moods. It also leads to poor food choices, inflammation, and more stress. Also leads to us not really feeling very good about ourselves because we're constantly unstable and just, we feel like we're just, we know what it feels like when we have gone on a binge of eating bad food. We feel guilt. We don't, we're upset with ourselves. We don't feel very good. We feel very lethargic. We always feel good food equals good moods, right? So you want to make sure you're eating healthy foods. 80-20 is what I recommend people all the time. I'm not saying don't enjoy treats or have a good time. I always tell people try to keep your diet between 80 and 20. 80% of the time, eat good, wholesome meals. 3 meals a day, a snack or 2 if you need it, depending on your activity level. The 20%, enjoy the dessert with your friends and family. Enjoy, the things that make you happy. You don't need to be 100%, but 80-20 works for me, and that's what I recommend. So that would come down to our balance, and try to avoid, sugary foods, snacks, and treats all the time. So that would go into that 20%. So as I mentioned, guys, heart disease and stroke are the 2 leading premature causes of death of women in Canada. So I don't know how many of you guys knew that, but 10 years postmenopausal is where we see women more susceptible to this. So as we go through menopause and our natural levels of estrogen start to decrease, we might see a little bit of rise in the male kind of hormone area, so an increase in that androgen. What also ends up happening for women once we hit menopause, there's so many things that happen to us, but once that end up happening is that we can have an increase of the bad cholesterol. So we're more prone to having bad cholesterol levels. So really important for you to have your cholesterol levels checked, especially once you've hit menopause. So you'll see an increase in that LDL. So that is the bad cholesterol. So we want to be cognitive of that, and our arteries start to shrink. So remember how I said estrogen helps keep that flexibility of those arteries, so it increases that blood flow, allows for that surge in that blood flow. As we get older and our estrogen levels drop, that flexibility starts to decrease, and we get more tighter vessels, and we get more fatty deposits in those vessels that leaves us prone to blockages and or clots, which would lead to heart disease and stroke. So we want to be very mindful of our cardiovascular health, and that's why nutrition and lifestyle plays such a huge role, not just in our early years, but it does play a role in preventative for, as we get older. But I always say now is never too late. So don't kind of think, oh, I haven't been eating healthier or that healthy. I don't have a good diet. Now is the time to make the changes because it's never too late. So just make sure that you are being proactive for all of the things that, can happen or that we're susceptible for. So exercise, ladies. I already talked about pelvic floor and core health. Happy to answer questions about that and where you can find those resources. Yoga is great for bringing your body, relieving our stress. Strength training, I already talked about why that's so important. If you're not much of a person that's highly active, but if you go outside and you ride your bike or you do hiking or you're an active person walking every day, these are all awesome. This is, great to move our body. It helps with our cardiovascular health. It does still help tone our muscles, but if you want to pick up a soup can here and there and do some squats or do something like that, that's even beneficial for you as well. Women should always be needing to move their body and keeping up their strength to help protect our, obviously our overall body, but to keep building up our pelvic and our core strength, because this is all preventative for long-term issues later on in life. Life is about balance. So this is one of my favorite things, and I hope you guys all this evening kind of take away with this, but balance in our health, balance in our relationship, our nutrition, hormones, and lifestyle. So if anything that you guys have heard me the last few weeks, when everything likes to be in balance. Our body likes to be in something called homeostasis. So we need to have balance in all of these areas, to feel, to have overall health, to feel good, to have good balanced hormones, to have, have good sleep hygiene, all those things. Everything needs to be in balance. So let's dive into my essentials for women. So these are the things that I believe, if you were to be like, what is, if, it's too bad I can't bring my whole laptop downstairs. If I was to show you my supplement cupboard, these are the things that you would see. I practice what I preach. So these are what I take every single day. Okay. So like I've mentioned, essential fatty acids are very important. So they help reduce inflammation in our body. We also need a good amount of essential fatty acids to help have healthy hormone levels at any stage in our life and in our age, right? It also really helps with our skin health. Vitamin Bs are really great for our hormones as well as healthy adrenal glands. They're important for the metabolization of our fats and our carbs and proteins. So vitamin Bs like to work synergistically together. So a good vitamin B complex or a multivitamin that has a couple B vitamins in it is great. Vitamin C, it's not just your immunity superhero. It's responsible for cardiovascular health. It's a very powerful antioxidant, which we should be taking every single day, as well as it's essential for our collagen production in our body. So we need adequate amounts of vitamin C to keep up with our collagen production. Calcium, we need that for the health of our bones. So we're more susceptible to osteoporosis, especially once we hit menopause. And that's because once we stop creating enough estrogen, or ovaries stop producing estrogen, if we don't get enough, other things in our body to keep up our estrogen production by our adrenal glands, it'll start to leach the calcium from our bones to keep up that estrogen production. So how many of you women on here right now are been told if you're in menopause, you need to be taking a calcium supplement because we are more susceptible for osteoporosis. So you make sure you're taking calcium. And magnesium biglycinate. Collagen, I take a collagen product, Natural Beauty, and I take natural hormone supports. I have been taking natural hormone supports for a few years. I actually use the Harmony Balance. You can see here, I've talked a lot about this product. And basically it has the 4 main ingredients that help balance and regulate the hormones. You can take this at any stage of perimenopause, depending on your signs and your symptoms, or if you have hormonal imbalances through your 20s and 30s, but we'll open that up to questions afterwards. Happy to answer any questions you have about the Harmony line and what works best for you. Probiotics for the digestive health. All my ladies on here who knows how much I talk about probiotics, great for that healthy bacteria. How I do my probiotics, and I don't know if I shared this in the Facebook Lives, but I cycle through them. So I don't use the same probiotics all the time. So I have a couple brands that I go through. My recommendation is choose a probiotic that has anywhere between 5 to 7 different strains of bacteria in them. And then anything that's over 25 to 50,000 CFUs. So CFUs stands for colony forming units. And basically, I will always choose the higher amount because when we swallow them and we take them, some of those bacteria die off. So if you're a person that says, hey, I eat a yogurt that has probiotics in it, you're not getting enough. You need a probiotic, a yogurt, you're not even, maybe even getting like 1,000 CFUs. Like you're getting a very, very small amount. So you need to make sure that you're taking an actual, eating probiotic rich foods is great, like kefir and those kind of things, but you want to take an actual probiotic to build up that, healthy amount of bacteria in your digestive tract. And milk thistle. So milk thistle is great for our liver health. It's very gentle to take. I take it in a tincture form in my water every morning. You can get green supplements, greens powder that are generally filled with those great greens like spirulina and chlorella. They usually have a good amount of probiotic, prebiotic powders, and they also have, milk thistle and burdock in them. So you can get that in green powder. I know Nature's Fair has a great collection of those, but I do mine in a tincture and I take it everywhere. So it helps tone the liver. It gives the liver a little TLC. And it helps with, getting, it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's a detox for our liver, but it just helps our liver, do its job much better. So I talked about balance. So I just showed you the balance box, but this is by Harmony. So Harmony is an Australian brand. They've been around since about 1990, and it was created by Rod Berger, who is a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner as well as herbalist. So this line was actually created for women going through menopausal symptoms. So it's the first actually company line in Canada that has specific herbs designed to help relieve these menopausal symptoms that we talked about and imbalances. So Balance actually has 4 herbs in it that help naturally balance that estrogen and progesterone out. It helps nourish our skin. So when we're going through hormonal imbalances, we might notice that our skin's not as dewy. It doesn't seem as fresh looking. We might have some outbreaks. It helps relieve menstrual pain, reduces breast tenderness, and helps with our mood. So that's the one that I actually take. Their menopausal line, if you are a lady who is going through menopause and looking for a little relief, or you're kind of going crazy with your symptoms and you've had enough, this is your best friend. These 3 here contain herbs that help naturally balance out your hormones during this time, but they also help relieve heat from the body. So if you're suffering a lot of hot flashes or night sweats, these 3 products, they have different dosaging of a herb called Rehmannia. So Harmony is the only one that has Rehmannia, this herb in it in Canada. So it kind of is designed to remove the heat, reduce the hot flashes, and get rid of those night sweats, as well as it has Chinese yam in it. So those 2 in combination help remove the heat from the body. So if you're suffering from a lot of hot flashes and night sweat, I'm happy to answer the questions about which one of these to choose. And Harmony Day and Night also lets you get some rest. So it actually has Ziphylus in it, which helps relieve insomnia and helps with sleeping. So if you're feeling like you're going through a lot of these things, we're not meant to suffer, ladies. We're not meant to, go through these times in our life, feeling like we can't catch a break. There are herbs and formulas out there that can help relieve this so that we can carry on with our lives and enjoy our lives and go into this transition of our reproductive years with confidence and empowerment. We're not meant to be at home feeling miserable. And that adds more stress to us, which we've already talked throughout this whole webinar about, how detrimental stress can be in our overall health. And lastly, this is the collagen product. So lots of people, I've been talking about collagen for many years. I know it's very overwhelming when you go into a store and there's a ton of collagens on there. So I'm going to keep it very simple for you. Marine collagen was one of the first collagens on the market when it came out. It was touted for beauty purposes. It is also the most bioavailable form of collagen that you can uptake in your body. It's the closest to ours. It's very high in type 1 and type 3. So collagen 101, we have over 16 different types of collagen in our body. The main ones that you hear us talk about are type 1, 2, and 3. So type 1 is anything on the exterior of our body. So I think hair, skin, and nails. Type 2 is what we find in those joints. So remember when I was talking about our cartilages and our ligaments and how we need to make sure that we get enough collagen and keep up our collagen production to have healthy cartilage, healthy ligaments to prevent things going on in our future like arthritis or even prone to injuries. And type 3 we find in our reticular fibers. So we find that in our muscles, we find that in our blood vessels, in our arteries, even in our organs. So think like our kidneys and our livers, we find that collagen. So collagen is the most abundant form of protein within our body. 90% of our body is made up of collagen. So we need to make sure that we keep up our collagen production. Marine collagen, it should absolutely 100% be wild caught. Okay, so if it says sustainable, that's one thing, but it needs to be wild. And this one is Harmony's Natural Beauty. So I believe Nature's Fair will have this at the end of the month. They don't have it yet, but I am lucky enough to be able to use it now. It contains astaxanthin. So astaxanthin is a very, very potent antioxidant. So it is probably about 3 times more potent than turmeric, and even more so than vitamin C. So it works as a very, very powerful antioxidant in our body. So it's really great for our skin health, but it's really good for our cardiovascular health. So we take on so many free radicals throughout the day. So think of how much toxins we take on every single day. And we have free radicals in our body. So basically how antioxidants work is they bind to those free radicals and then we excrete them out through our kidneys and our feces. And we can even do that through our sweat as well. So astaxanthin actually is very powerful. It helps bind to those free radicals to give us overall health. Silica, you probably know, is really good for our hair, skin, and nails. I want you to guys think of that as like the fertilizer to having strong nail beds, good strong hair, it's not like brittle, and good, nice plump skin. So really great for helping with our collagen production. We need enough silica to keep up our collagen production. And then inulin in this product actually is a prebiotic. So prebiotic helps build up that good abundance of that healthy bacteria. So these are the things that I take and that I believe as a woman that we need to, have in our supplement cupboard, whether we're getting supplementation through the foods that we eat or to keep up with our overall health. Supplementation is not meant to be, forever. I always tell my clients, rotate through your supplements. So as I was mentioning with my probiotics, I always choose, a probiotic through different brands. When I finish that probiotic, I usually take 2 weeks off and then I rotate into the other brand. Same kind of idea when I do, like my collagen. I'll do a whole series of taking my collagen and then I'll take a couple of weeks off and then I start taking it again. When it comes to hormone balancing products or things like that, you don't need to stay on them long term. Generally, I usually tell people you should stay on them depending on the signs of your symptoms and severity, 4 to 6 months. Taper off them and see how you're feeling. Generally, it's naturally help to balance them out. You can kind of come off them. If you start to notice you're having more of those symptoms, especially more of the heavier menopausal symptoms, then you can stay on them longer until those things start to subside. You don't need to be on these things for 8 to 10 years. Choose a hormone balancing product when your signs and symptoms are getting really noticeable, or you're starting to be like, hey, I'm uncomfortable. I want to see if this helps. Stay on them for a few months and then come off of them. So this isn't something you need to be for long term. And when it comes to vitamins and minerals, though, I definitely recommend staying on that because it is really hard to absorb all of those nutrients in our foods today, even though if you're eating 100% organic, it's hard. Our soils are very depleted. So things like our vitamin A's and our C's and our E's and, some of our essential fatty acids and some of those minerals that we need that you saw in there, I recommend taking those every day. So now, guys, is the time I did that. Wow, I did it right on the dot. I did a full hour. Did you see that, Haley?
Impressive. There's been some really great questions and comments already. There's a couple people that just wanted to see the product again. If you want to hold them up. Okay, so that's so that's Balance. Yeah, and I don't have the other. I only have so that's Balance, and then this is the Harmony Menopause Day and Night. So go back. Oh yeah, you can do it. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. So yeah, and maybe what I'll do is I'll describe this slide for you guys. So the first one you see here in the front row, Harmony Menopause. So basically Harmony Menopause, it does contain the herbs that help balance and regulate our hormones. So it has donquay in it. It has, it doesn't have donquay in it. It has Vitex in it, bupleuron, and it has peony. So those help regulate and balance those hormones that are kind of out of whack. But what it also does contain is Rehmannia. So Rehmannia is that herb that I said is what Harmony is known for, because it's the herb that removes the heat from the body, so reduces those hot flashes and the night sweats. So it has Rehmannia in it to help. So if you're starting to notice a little bit of those hot flashes, those night sweats, kind of notice some period irregularities, you can step into the Harmony Menopause, that blue box in front. The one that you see hiding in the very back, the Max, that's for the maxed out woman. That's for like when you've had enough of all these hot flashes, you can't stop sweating, you're night sweating, you have the night sweats at bedtime. You're just really, this one doesn't have the donquay in it. The Harmony Menopause does, sorry, my apologies. But this is more specific to those hot flashes. So you would use this. And then the Menopause Day and Night is what has a higher dosaging of that Rehmannia. But it also has Ziphylus in it. So the nighttime formula has a higher amount of that Rehmannia to reduce that heat, but it helps you sleep at night, which is very common when you're in menopause. Or perimenopause, you have a hard time sleeping. So, okay. Yeah. That's great. And there was a question about the timing with the vitamins that you were talking about, whether it was the Harmony products or your regular kind of protocol. Can you take them together, or should it be timed separately? And do you need to do it with food or without food?
Yeah. Okay. So I break my vitamins up throughout the day. So when I take balance, I usually take balance. So I get up in the morning, I do a greens powder, and I do my balance with my water and my greens. I actually put my collagen in my greens as well. So I usually pound it back in a healthy shot. And then I take my balance on like an empty stomach with water. And then I kind of eat my breakfast later on. I've never noticed any stomach discomfort, but if you're sensitive to vitamins and herbs, then you could take it with a little bit of food. So I always take my this one in the morning. And then my magnesium and my probiotics I take at night. And then I usually take, my multivitamin throughout the day because I do an NRC sachet. And then my essential fatty acids I do, I'll either throw it in my smoothie. So I don't take everything at once because otherwise your body's going to be like overloaded. You're not going to absorb anything. So I try to break things up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And now back to the collagen, there was a couple questions.
Sure.
You mentioned starting taking it young is great, but if you're in your 50s and 60s, is it okay to start taking it later in life? And would you have to talk to your doctor about any conflictions with medicines?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. No, you can start taking it at any age. The one thing that people have come back to me and said, I started taking this. It's not going to erase. If you're taking it for more beauty purposes, people go with, I still have this fine. It's not going to erase the signs of aging. It's going to slow down the signs of aging. Same thing when we're talking about our joint health. So if you already have some arthritis and some pain in there, it's not going to rebuild your cartilage, but it's going to slow down that loss of that cartilage. And generally when people have arthritis and they start taking a collagen product, the achiness and that dullness actually subsides. So it does help with that joint and hip pain. So definitely can start taking it at in your 60s or your 70s. A lot of people feel a lot of that, they feel that relief. Collagen is it's the amino acids in it. There's nothing in there that will affect any of your prescription medications or any other thing like that. It's the amino acids that you're actually absorbing out of the collagen that help naturally increase, your collagen production within your body. So it won't counteract with any of your medications or anything like that.
That's awesome. Thank you. An interesting one here on protein sources. They asked if you have an opinion to share about edible insects and consuming, whether it's cricket bars or cricket proteins, that kind of thing, as your source for protein, amino acids, and fiber.
This is a funny topic for me because I used to work with a girl. She's so funny. Actually, I think you guys had a Rhiannon. Anyway, she used to do the cricket protein all the time. And I couldn't do it. But
I've had the cricket bars, and some of them are actually like, they taste like a protein bar. You would never know.
Yeah. And she says they taste great. I think it was more me just couldn't get past that. I was like, oh, can't do it. But I do know they are a good source of protein and they're healthy and sustainable for our environment. So, if it's all about if it works for you and that's your source of protein, that's great. We need to make sure that we're getting at least 20 grams of protein in a serving for, in a meal. Like, aim for that. Try to, it's a good protein size, like depending on what you're eating, but you want the size of your palm. But women should be getting at least 20 grams of protein in each meal. So, or, if you're looking at, if it's a protein powder or whatever, make sure that's what you want to aim at. So if that works for you with the cricket protein, I know it's very sustainable and it's good for you, then go for it. I've heard good things about it.
A couple more about different recommendations for vitamins. Do you have any suggestions for probiotics?
Yeah. So the main brands that I use for probiotics, so I use the Flora brand. Do you guys carry Flora? I'm sure you guys do.
Yeah, that's a very popular one.
Yeah, so we do the Flora. I believe the one that I'm doing right now actually with Flora is the Super 8. I also really like Renew Life. Renew Life has a women's specific one. So if you're prone to UTIs or even like yeast infections, this might be the one for you. And I also love Progressive. So depending on your digestive health, I usually recommend this if you're pretty prone to like IBS and IBDs, to do the Progressive HCP 75. Yeah, those are my 3.
Yeah, those are great. Living Alchemy has a interesting quiz you can take online about like what probiotics right for you based on their line. So I always recommend people checking that one out too.
Oh, I should check that out. I've never actually tried theirs before.
And is a probiotic less effective if you take it with food, or is it better on an empty stomach?
So every probiotic is different. So you want to read the instructions on them. Some of them you need to, some are enteric coated and some are not. Some say take it with food and some don't. So on the bottle, it will tell you. If it doesn't say to take with food, I always recommend taking probiotics at bedtime. And the reason for this is we do all of our digestive healing when we sleep at night. It also is a great time, you know, we don't have our digestive tracts having a little break when we don't eat for those 12 hours or how long between. So I always say like glutamine and probiotics at bedtime is a great time to do it. But if it, you know, they'll tell you on, I think the main ones I just talked about, all of them you don't need to take with food.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, that covers, I think, most of the questions. So thank you, Chelan. It was such a wonderful series. And I just love the message of embracing all of our changes and going into each part of our cycle with that like positive outlook. It's not, I think on the event 3, you were like, it's not a disease. Menopause is not a disease. It is just a new phase and a phase that we can embrace. So thank you for all of your support for all of the women that were here with us tonight. Lots of great comments, lots of thank yous, such good information. It's fantastic.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Haley, and Nature's Fair for having me. I loved it. As I told you, I'm going to miss you guys. This has been a great month, ladies.
It's been so much fun.
Listening, stay in touch. Check out my website, or you can reach out to me on Instagram if you have questions, or Facebook. And yeah, are you going to pick do you have the winner? Are you going to do it?
I'm going to do a draw with the full list of attendees because some people have left. So stay tuned in your email for possibly being the prize winner tonight. And we'll also send out the recording of the presentation.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Go enjoy your evening. And thank you, Haley.
Good night, everyone.
Okay. Bye.